Imagine it's your first day at a new programming job. You type something into Google, click the first link, and you see this pop up.
There are so many examples of NJPs and court-martials, but the in-house punishments, those bring some heat. I was on a boat and this kid did something stupid that he definitely should have went to mass for, but they decided to cut him a break. Instead, his punishment was to take out the trash before he leaves work every day. He had 7 very full trash cans in our division, and the dump was on the pier about a half-a-mile walk from the ship. Probably like, what? Taking out the trash? That's cake. Nah, this man had to take it out one piece at a time. Needless to say, this man didn't go home early ever.
We all know that the Middle Ages is home to some of the most cruelest punishments ever made. And as I was going through my comments last night, I came across this comment right here from this broski, who said I should take a look at the Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden is one of the most cruelest punishments that I've ever come across, and I'm interested to know who and why someone would have thought of such an evil punishment. The concept of the punishment was very simple. You get inside the box and they close it. But inside the box are very sharp nails which impaled you as it closed. This led to a very painful and excruciating but slowly death. However, for years historians have argued whether the punishment was actually used. Some historians have so far flat out refused to believe that the Iron Maiden was ever used, but considering that the Middle Ages was a time of when we used things such as the brazen bolt, the breaking wheel, and the blood eagle, it's not hard to believe that a punishment such as the Iron Maiden was used. So braces, do you think it was used or not used? And as always braces, if you think that there's a punishment worse than this, comment down below and your comment may be featured in the next video.
What are some of the worst forms of punishment or torture that humans have come up with? Hey guys, what's up? I hope you're having a fantastic day, and let's dive into medieval torture. We are going to start off this series with rat torture, one of the worst forms of punishment that a human has ever inflicted upon another human. And if you are scared of mice or rats, I'm sure the name within itself kind of gives you an idea that it is going to be terrifying and have to do with rodents. So with this form of torture, what they would do is take a metal cage that has an opening on the bottom, and the open bottom would be placed upon your abdomen or your stomach, the most tender part of your body. And then 1, 2, 3 plus rats would be placed inside of this cage upon your stomach.
Here are some gruesome facts about the upright jerker, a brutal form of execution from the late 19th century. Much like in regular hanging, a hood would be placed on the victim's head, and a noose would be tightened around their neck. However, instead of a trap door, the rope tied around their neck was fixed to some pulleys and a counterweight. When the weight fell, the criminal would be yanked or jerked upwards, hopefully snapping their neck. We say hopefully because the upright jerker was actually pretty terrible at giving its victims a swift death, compared to the snap, choke, or decapitation of a regular hanging. What was meant to be a humane death was considered by critics as hideous and barbaric. One man executed with the upright jerker, unnamed criminal Gerald Chapman, strangled to death for an agonizing 9 minutes, courtesy of the machine. Not a pleasant way to go.
This has to be one of the most cruelest punishments I've ever heard about, and I can guarantee that you'll be shocked as well. So back in the Middle Ages, they used to have a punishment called the comb punishment. So the comb punishment was a punishment where you had to lay face down, and they would get a comb and drive it in your back and forth until basically you'll die. Now I know you may be thinking, surely this isn't as bad, I mean it's just a comb. Substitute the bristles of the comb with really sharp nails, and this would go on for hours and hours. But here's the worst part. Sometimes people did not die from this punishment, which meant that they had to go through all of that pain still to be alive. So the next phase was to cut off their head. Wow.
Rat torture, a cruel medieval punishment, part 2. So once the cage is upon your stomach and they have placed the rats inside, they would then light a fire above the cage. The fire would cause panic within the rats as they are scared for their lives, afraid that they are going to get burnt up by this fire. Rightfully so, I think all of us would be scared in that situation. The rats would then try to scurry and find their way out of the cage, but since it is metal, they will not be able to chew their way out of it. And that's when their attention will turn to the victim's stomach. The rats will then begin to claw, chew, and do anything to get through to the outside to get away from this fire. And that is where the torture comes into play, because these rats will literally tear through the person's stomach.
Here's why the blood eagle is one of the worst tortures in history. The blood eagle was a type of ritual execution practiced by Vikings, which we know about through descriptions of it in skaldic poetry. However, many historians think these accounts could be exaggerated, as many of them were written years after the execution supposedly happened. Here's how it supposedly went though. First, the person is stripped and laid chest down with their back facing up in the air. The naked victim is then approached by an executioner with a very sharp knife or axe. The executioner then tears through the flesh in the man's back with so much power that he actually severs the ribs. Those ribs are pulled and stretched outward, and the lungs are pulled through the back and wrapped over the ribs. This procedure was supposed to give the impression of a bird's wing, hence the blood eagle.
3 school punishments that shouldn't be allowed. Number 1, the dark closet. A teacher from Texas actually locked a 5-year-old kid in a dark closet. The kid was so scared that he threw up. That teacher should be fired. Number 2, the cone of shame. A teacher in Florida forced their kids who arrived late to wear a dog cone. The students went home crying and the teacher lost her job. Number 3, eating food off the floor. In Alabama, a kid missed the garbage can and the teacher forced him to eat all the food off the floor. That's gross.
Worst school punishments? Part 1. Number 1, kneeling on frozen peas. It might sound not harmful at all, but wait till I show you what happened. In Asia, they made a student kneel on frozen peas for 3 hours, and when she got home, she posted this online and later got expelled. This was her knees after 3 hours of kneeling on frozen peas. This one would be embarrassing. Number 2, eating their lunch off the floor. In 2009, a class of 5th graders in New Jersey were disrespectfully punished to eat their lunch off the floor for 10 days while their classmates watched. And this ended up lasting for 10 days before someone told on their teacher.
Medieval torture device part 20. These are called the punishing shoes. The victim would typically be strapped on to something with their head and arms and see how long they can stand on their tippy toes. When they fall back, the spikes would be jammed into their heels.
What? Allahu Akbar. What they call?
Stay awake for too long, don't go to bed. I'll make a cup of coffee for your head. I'll get you up and going out